This is the meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee, and it's December 20th. And tonight we're going to be talking about Conservation Commission, the museum, welfare, the default budget, estimated revenues, revisit items, and we're going to do minutes at our next meeting. Okay, Mr. Town Manager, what would you have for us this evening?
A few things for you. Number one, I would just ask when we get into the agenda items, if we could do the revisit items before we do the default budget and the revenues, so we can get the department heads out of here. It'd be greatly appreciated. We've got some documents in front of you that when we get to the revisits and to the default budget and revenues, Casey and or I will explain what you have in front of you.
Okay.
John? We can do the pledge?
Yeah, we're going to do that right now.
Oh, okay.
During the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah.
And Bob Tupper, would you lead us in that, please?
Certainly. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim, we can start with a revisit item you want to start with.
If you want to do the Conservation Commission first.
First, okay.
So that would be in the Planning and Zoning tab, page 19, Department 46110.
We have Lenore, the chair of the Conservation Commission here, and she's got some other representatives with her as well. So any questions you have related to this budget, I'm sure Lenore or the members will be able to answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Lenore.
Good evening.
Okay, let's start with the 100 series. $200 series.
Oh.
$300 series. $400 series.
Yes, John.
Yes, sir.
Line 491.
Okay.
I gave you guys an email that Matthew Fletcher and I talked about at some length yesterday, which explains at least his and my position on the $10,000, and I know that you want to speak to it, so please.
Thank you. I believe there's one new budget committee member here who doesn't know me. I'm Lenore Clark, I'm the chair. And with me tonight I have Sarah Silk, Jim Knupp, Dan Coons, and Warren Muir, also of the Conservation Commission. And we are in charge of managing almost 60 properties, over 1,000 acres in town, all volunteer. We have 7 regular members and 3 alternate members. The line item that's being talked about tonight is a new line item for us as of last year. So we did request a level funded budget for next year, including our new line item. The concerns are about the approach that we're taking to manage invasive species. Between last year and this year, I participated in the Invasive Species Academy, which was held virtually this year at the UNH Cooperative Extension. It was a 5-week program where we met online, and because there had been a certain amount of controversy about one of the chemicals we were using, I would just like to clear one thing up for the record. We did not use Roundup. I know that name triggers lots of alarm bells in folks. We did use a glyphosate-based product, so I don't want to, pull the wool over anyone's eyes about that, but we did not use Roundup. Between last year and this year, I've participated in this academy. We talked about it. There are many, many, many instances. I have actually direct quotes that I brought with me about why it's important, depending on the plant species you have, depending on the size of your infestation, depending on the age of your infestation, that you don't just try to use one method of control, you use multiple control methods, which is what we did. We used a combination of mechanical and chemical treatment. That is what is known to be effective. We had multiple stories from the presenters at the Academy for one example, one woman who's an organic gardener tried for over 20 years to hand pull a 20-acre site of hers. 20 years she put into it. And finally, she, in her words, "I cried uncle." She gave up. And this is also true of Wendy Scribner, who is the county forester with UNH Cooperative Extension. Same anecdotal experience. In her own backyard, she had an infestation of invasive species, and which she tried to hand pull. She tried to not use chemicals, and also cried uncle. In the long term, it doesn't seem to work. Again, depending on the circumstances. What we're dealing with here, and I apologize because you weren't here for I had a whole slideshow presentation last year. I have printed out most of the slides, but not all the pretty pictures. If I may approach the bench, so you can see what we're talking about. So what we're dealing with is a few of our properties, 3 of them, 2 of which we started at the end of 2020 and continued on in 2021, and we'd like to add another smaller 2-acre property this coming up year. So all told, about 20 acres piecemeal, not all put together. Infestations that have been here probably since the late 1800s, because what used to happen back in the day is farmers would plant invasive bittersweet, they didn't know it was invasive back then, use it to sort of hem in their hedgerow, use it to like hedgerow their properties. It grew so quick and thick that the sheep would stay in their plots. So fast forward over 100 years, we now have these infestations that are well over 100 years old. And we have a diminishing asset in terms of town properties that we are losing ground with. Invasive species grow exponentially. They don't grow linearly. So every year we don't do something, the problem is getting exponentially worse. And I believe this board saw the wisdom in that and awarded us a $10,000 line item, and we are hoping that the board will allow us to keep it for 2022. If there's any specific glyphosate questions, Warren Muir is here, and he might be able to speak to the chemical nature better than myself, but it is not a persistent chemical. It does not bioaccumulate in the environment, and it is recommended by both UNH Cooperative Extension and the Nature Conservancy. So, are there any?
Do you do spray, or do you do the daub?
It is a modified version of that. They cut the stump and they use a targeted application with it's a very specialized piece of equipment called an ultra low volume wand. Mm-hmm. So it's not broadcast spraying, it's not going out into the greater environment, it's not just painting it on, no, it is spraying, but it's spraying right at that area. He does then follow up the following year with a targeted application that is called a foliar spray, if there's any regrowth. So again, when you get regrowth, it's a lot different than having a mature plant. It's just starting to re-sprout, and he can aim his ultra low volume wand. And
so the idea is to, when you cut the bittersweet, you've got to, depending on the size, you've got anything from an inch or bigger to something that's.
I found a 6-inch one out at Town's Gardens.
Right. So I mean, yes,
they get huge.
They're big. So you cut it and then you spray that, and that kills the roots, correct?
Correct. In theory, correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And as opposed to like trying to spray it on broadcast onto leaves.
Correct. You've got it.
The Wentworth Watershed Association, which I'm a member of, we're doing some invasives on some of our property, their property, I should say.
Yeah.
And
Julie Brown participated in the Invasive Species
correct,
Academy
and
with me.
we're doing we've got the pullers to pull,
Yep.
but also a lot of times it's just to simply cut and then daub or spray.
Yep.
And that gets to the roots rather than broadcast to spray.
Correct.
So then you're targeted. The cutting doesn't work because when we're out there, when you cut, unless you daub to kill the roots or spray to kill the roots, you'll get a cut of a plant this big, and then you have 5 coming out of that, a year from now.
Right.
So I don't have an issue with doing this, I just wanna make sure that the person that you're working with is licensed,
He is.
and that you're doing it on a least amount of spray that you can use. In other words, I'm not in favor of the spray at all.
Absolutely.
Wrong to get out there and spray the leaves. Yes, to get out and cut, and then targeted, whether it's like you found a big one, or the small ones. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
all the same process, whether it's bittersweet or whether it's burning bush, same
Right.
thing.
Right,
So,
which we also have, yeah, that's,
Right.
so, yeah, absolutely, yeah, that's, and again, he said, yes, he has this, I think it was, I wanna say $350 specialized piece of equipment. The person that we're using is a licensed commercial applicator, and that's something else I would like the budget committee to understand. I have done a deep dive into this earlier this year. Pesticides in New Hampshire are very strictly regulated, as are invasive species. The definition of invasive species in New Hampshire is that it is a species that is not native to New Hampshire and is causing environmental and/or economic harm. Like it's right in the definition. So harm is already happening. Let's make sure we understand harm is already happening. So the gentleman who we've hired is a licensed commercial applicator. He also serves on the Amherst Conservation Commission. So he's of like mind with us. And yeah, he's not out there spraying willy-nilly. That's not happening.
Question. What is the risk specifically? I don't know, I'm not sure where the town's gardens are, but I do know where Front Bay Park is.
Yep.
And I need to address the risk of runoff. That's really the big issue, because it's right above Back Bay.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
that's the major concern, is that we're gonna have some runoff going down there. We have spent all kinds of time and money on water quality and various and sundry other projects, and that's what the concern is here.
Sure, absolutely, which is a concern that we share as well. We are the Conservation Commission. We are not looking to impede water quality. That would be completely counter to what we are doing.
One would hope so.
Yeah, right? So again, this is not a chemical that persists in the environment. It does break down rather quickly. I don't know if Warren would like to speak to any specifics about that. I can just tell you that it breaks down and doesn't last. And that currently we have a species out there at Front Bay Park called common buckthorn. What this does is it drops leaves into the water. A chemical exudes from it, a natural chemical, and kills embryos of amphibians. So we currently have a plant that's killing amphibians at Front Bay Park. If we were to go out there and either allow goats there, goats, for one thing, are a method of what's called biological control. Right now, the only species in New Hampshire for which biological control is sanctioned is purple loosestrife. That's not an issue at either of our sites. Goats do what goats do. They eat, and then it has to come out somewhere. What comes out the other end is also not good for water quality, as is erosion. So if you start pulling things, you disrupt the soil. Now you have soil running off into Front Bay Park. Also not good, right? I mean, it's really one of those things. We are in a bad situation, and we're just trying to make it better and get to the point where we can then go out eventually and do the hand pulling without churning up too much soil. That's our goal. Our goal is not to do this year after year after year.
Do you have pullers to design, because there are pullers designed specifically for that? They're
Oh, right.
manufactured, I
Yeah,
forget
there
what
was.
they're called.
There used to be something called a weed wrench that is unfortunately no longer on the market, and I'm
Yeah,
not sure
something
why.
different than that.
Yeah,
But
and then
basically
there's
they
something
come
called a
in
rogue
different sizes,
hoe.
And they can just grab on and just, it's leverage
Right.
that pulls them out.
Right.
How close, when you apply, when we applied, we couldn't apply anywhere within 150 feet of water or a well. Is that same regulation for you?
Be the same regulation for anyone unless you didn't have a licensed applicator.
It's a
That would be.
licensed applicator that does it, and his thing was 150 feet from any standing water or well.
So we would follow whatever regulation. And I did check the wells, by the way, last year, because I remember that came out.
Did you do this last year?
We've done it in different phases, so it started in December
My
2020.
question is, what's your success from last year to this year?
What's our success?
Right.
You have to kind of go out and look at it. We have not been out there I've been out there, looked. I haven't gone out with a grid. There's all kinds of, scientific methodology for actually measuring how many species you've got, what your percentage of cover is. I have not done that. That's something that would take, some amount of money to hire a consultant to go out and do. That's
I
sort
mean,
of,
just, if
But
your
visually,
group went
yes.
out and did it last year,
yeah.
has it been enough time to visually see an improvement?
I don't think it has, because they did it this summer, correct? They didn't do
They,
it last
that was the
year.
follow-up.
So-
They started last year, and then they did the follow-up this year. Yeah, the first treatment, the cut stump treatment, was done in December of 2020. And then there was a follow-up treatment this past summer. If you would like me to get my computer out, I could show you
No,
a picture.
I just want to ascertain that you're seeing progress in the application.
Oh, we're absolutely seeing progress, yes. I have a zoology degree, so I tend to think in concrete data and numbers. But
I
yes,
don't, and I don't.
anecdotally, yes, we are seeing. There were spots on the Front Bay Park Trail that you could not see the view, and now you can.
Okay, good.
John?
Yes, sir.
I would like to hear from Warren on this. I've had a conversation with him about this. Roundup is a very nasty word in my house. And you have this letter that we have from one of our members says Roundup as a glyphosate, is that how you pronounce it?
Glyphosate.
Glyphosate. So what I would like to know is, you said that you don't use Roundup.
Right.
You use a different glyphosate, and I would like to know what the difference is. What is the difference? Why is glyphosate better than Roundup, other than reputation?
Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and Roundup, because it was manufactured by what was known as Monsanto, now has been bought by Bayer. That's where they sends up a lot of red flags, because there's a lot of animosity towards Monsanto, understandably. So the product that we use is made by Dow, which also has its own, some people don't, if you don't like chemicals, you don't like the chemical companies for sure. It is a glyphosate-based product, though, and if you want to, I'm not the chemical applicator myself. I don't know the exact differences. I did provide the material safety data sheet to to the town manager. So I doubt that he brought that with him tonight.
So, but Roundup has a reputation of
Absolutely.
Being a carcinogen, and I would just like to know what are the benefits versus the risks? How long is it going to take for us to get rid of this stuff, and is it worth it? That's really what I would like to know. So, but I would like to hear from Warren. Warren is a scientist, and I'm curious about the effects of Roundup and its breakdown, the quickness of its breakdown.
It's hard for me to imagine standing up in a meeting and defending Monsanto's products, given my interactions with them over the years and my involvement. The difference between Roundup and glyphosate is that there's the active ingredient is glyphosate, and Roundup has some other ingredients in it, and it's got like surfactants and things. And actually, with respect to fish, it's the surfactant which is a greater concern than the glyphosate. The glyphosate it's a very short lifetime in the environment, and it binds the soil, and so it's not running. If the soil's not running into the water, even the degradation product's not going into the water. It's a chemical that goes into the plant and kills the plant right down through the roots. It's systemic, given that it's very targeted application, it is, and the short lifetime and no environmental buildup, it's a desirable product to be used, especially compared to the other pesticides that you would use if you didn't use glyphosate. And in terms of the budget, only a tiny fraction of our $10,000 budget has to do with the chemical. It's the labor and all the other activities associated with the control of the invasives, whatever method we use.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Just, I know there was some discussion last year when we talked about what the risk is to the environment or the property by not doing anything. And I was wondering if you could speak to that. I know you already talked about the issue of the one species that drops its leaves in the water and how that affects amphibians. But what's the average taxpayer gonna gain by expending this money?
Sure, that's a great question. So invasive species are managed by the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, and they're estimating damage, economic damage in the United States, not just in New Hampshire, measured over $100 billion annually because of because there's a loss of ecosystem function. There's some evidence to show that there's less bugs on invasive plants than on native plants. And if you can imagine, some of those bugs are pollinators, right, that are going to affect our agricultural areas. And then the whole chain that as it gets into the food web. So there's also the fact that bittersweet tends to hide the little critters on which the Lyme disease carrying ticks like to live. So if you have these thick vines growing in, you have critters hiding in there, predators can't get to them. So Lyme disease, as we all know, is a big concern in this area. We're making the problem worse by not attacking the invasive bittersweet. Invasive barberry, which was found at the town's garden site, actually doesn't just hide the mice that carry the ticks. The ticks, for whatever reason, love barberry, and there's actual scientific published journal studies that black-legged ticks congregate on barberry. So there's a million different answers to it. I'm not sure you can sort of, really this does come down, I mean, I have to agree, it comes down to a philosophical question, right? What's the lesser of two evils, and what do we want to do? Do we want to allow non-native species to proliferate, knowing that they're causing environmental harm, knowing that it's having an effect on the aesthetics, especially, that might not matter as much at a place like Town Garden. We don't necessarily invite the public there, but Front Bay Park, we have built one of the few ADA accessible trails in town, and if we just let it go, it gets like an overgrown jungle. And that's our ADA trail that we're inviting the public to come visit. So there's an economic cost in a tourism-based, a town that has its economy based in tourism.
And just kind of a follow-up, is there any sense as to, when we would get to where we want to be?
That's the $1 million question. And I remember you folks asked me about it last year, and again, I'm not a professional, I'm more of a coordinator, right? I go out and I find the experts, I talk to them and decide. No one can look unless you can look into a crystal ball, you don't know. But our best guess is that after 5 years, we can get the sites under enough control that we can start, much like what was done in Back Bay with the milfoil committee, right? Milfoil committee went in, had to treat it pretty intensively at the beginning, and then got to a point where they could go in and start hand pulling. And as time goes on, you get to put less and less resources into it. And that's what we're expecting to achieve here as well. So again, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't make a promise, but our best guess is that in 5 years, you'll start to see enough of a difference that we can start to pull back.
Is the $10,000 number arrived at based on an estimated number of hours that you're going to be able to put into this project, or is it,
Last year, at the time that we were originally conceived of this, it was a guess. It was a flat-out guess. And then in between that time of the guesswork and then the time when we found this consultant and brought him on, he was able to come up with and we didn't mention any dollar figures, we just gave him a request for a proposal. And it actually came out, to be honest, it was slightly higher, it was more like $13,000. So the $10,000 is a little bit less than what we really need. And in fact, there was a request amongst our commissioners to increase our ask for 2022, and the majority voted no, because we know that we're trying to honor your request to just keep it level funded. And we do have some, I had a conversation with the same consultant earlier today, and we've got some more work planned for 2022 if we have our line item. We have, like I said, there's leftover work from last year. He admitted he underbid one of the projects a little bit. We have a new 2-acre site that has a few invasives on it that we'd like to start, added to our queue.
One further question from me. I guess my concern, as well as, and Matt's concern, based on his email, is the quality of water. And that's really the issue here. Invasive species need to be handled, there's no question about
Right.
that. The risk of damaging the water quality is really the main issue. And I guess what I'm about to ask is there anything in this $10,000 program from your consultant that does any kind of monitoring as to runoff possibility or water quality issues? In other words, what I'm saying is, have we got the fail-safe in back of all this, especially in Front Bay Park? That's the one that's really a concern.
Monitoring is not included.
How do we measure if there is an effect from whatever chemical it is you're using, even with a targeted spray concept you're talking about? There's always going to be runoff of some kind. And I guess the question is the chemical you're using not a problem? Number one. Number two, if runoff occurs, is it going to create a problem in Back Bay?
I think I'm gonna.
Once glyphosate is sprayed, it has about a 7-day lifetime, okay? Like in the plant. In the soil, it gets bound and is degraded to a different product immediately. And so we're not gonna be able to measure any glyphosate in the water at all. And I'm on Wolfeboro Water, so it's an assessment of. So there's not going to be glyphosate in Lake Winnipesaukee. Speaking to the issue is, invasive species grow, and they can grow, as Lenore said, exponentially. I saw it in Wolfeboro where the invasive species were just completely overgrowing and just taking over entire areas that had been recreational areas before. If we don't keep it under control, it's going to be a much bigger problem to deal with in the future. And so a $10,000 investment on all of our properties is just a tiny bit of very important preventative.
Keep in mind that I'm absolutely for doing something about invasive species.
Yeah,
My major concern is water quality in Front Bay.
It's not a water quality issue.
And if you're saying it's
I
okay,
assure you
knowing
it's not a
how
water
involved you were with the situation at Cary Beach.
I'm
you
very
feel comfortable with
very intimately involved with Cary Beach, let me tell you.
Okay, we all set with that one? 500 series? 600 series? And 800 series. Any other questions? I want to thank you folks. You actually came in underneath your budget about $900 from the previous year. Appreciate that.
We try.
Okay, who would you like to bring up next?
Libby is next. It's
Have
in
a
the-
Merry Christmas, everyone.
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I was gonna, every time.
In the Parks and Rec section, page 43, Department 45891, Libby Museum. I believe the town manager is speaking on this. Is that correct?
That is, yes.
What page, Casey?
Page 43, Department 45891, Libby Museum,
Parks and Rec,
under Parks and Rec.
43?
43, yes.
All the way down, right on top of the water pump. So I'll go ahead and introduce this. This year, we have hired a new director of the Libby Museum. She is at this time out of the country. However, she was basically, last year our previous director did some searching for her own replacement. The young lady that we've hired actually has a background in museum operations and is thrilled to be on board. Really minimal changes in this budget, and I can try to answer any questions which you may have.
I'm sorry, Jackie?
Yep.
What page?
Page 43, under Parks and Rec, Department 45891.
I'm not there yet. Okay. Keep scrolling.
Okay, our 100 series. Series.
Hey, John, I just have a general question. I'm looking at page 43 and just looking at the manager's budget and the Board of Selectmen budget. Which are we supposed to be looking at? The Board of Selectmen or the manager, the town manager's budget?
Number 7, the town, Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, okay, 200, 300. $400. I want to jump back to the 100 series, I'm sorry. What was the reasoning for not going along with your recommendation for the supervisor's salaries and also the part-time wages, the increases over what you recommended?
I'm just
If I recall, there was a contract that the town manager approved with the new director, and I was unaware of that, so that's why it wasn't in the town manager's column.
Okay.
Is that?
I'm going
Yep.
back and forth between the two.
I could be incorrect, but I remember that when our current director spoke, she said that she wanted the new director, who is highly qualified coming in, believed that she should have a slight increase in her wage based on hours, the amount per hour she was working. And then was bringing in, said that there would be a less qualified assistant underneath, so the new assistant coming in would come in at a lower wage. So by the two of them going together, they average, they come out to the same as what was in the 2021 budget. And that was her understanding, because she said she wanted to definitely support our new director, because the new director is fabulous. First time we've had a director there that really has lots of experience.
Okay. You happy with that, Jim, the answer?
Yeah, and the other thing that I believe had occurred was for some of the longstanding employees, there was a raise that occurred.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 300, 400, 500.
John, I have a couple of questions here.
Okay, John?
I see that dues and fees has gone up considerably. Why is that?
So, one of the interesting things about the Libby Museum historically,
Beg your pardon?
one of the interesting things that we learned about the Libby Museum this year was they had no way of accepting credit card payments. So what was happening, the young lady was actually taking credit card payments through her own system, and we put the stop to all of that. So we ended up creating a line to help pay for that, along with the website hosting, so that we could streamline the accounting of funds as opposed to it going into somebody's personal bank account.
I have a general question here. How much revenue are they receiving a year, and from where?
So they're not making a lot of revenue at this point. I can't tell you right off the top of my head, John, because I don't remember, but they have put together what their revenues are over the past 3 or 4 years based on attendance. But it's not a lot of money.
Well, what is the attendance records show?
I want to say they're in the 3,000 to 3,500 people a year.
And what's what each person has to pay so much?
So it depends. There's different fees associated with it. I think under a certain age you're free. I think seniors get a discount. But that's one of the things that we are looking at with the new director is where should our fees be? However, the other thing that we learned through a meeting with somebody who specializes in museums, there's also a question to get the attendance up and to get more donations to do away with the fee structure completely. So there's a lot of work to be done around that.
In the current revenues, there's $5,316 for 2021.
Thank you.
Okay, 800 series.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
before we go any further, where is that show?
It's on my revenue sheet that we're gonna go over later, but it's on the top of page 3, 01340100600, income, Libby Museum.
Ah, there it is, okay, I see it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Libby? Okay, where should we go next? Where would you like to go next?
So if we're done with Libby, can we go on to the revisits?
Yep, who would you like to do first?
Can we start with the fire department capital outlay request for ladder 1 tools?
Goddamn, when is this?
So, the latter one too.
Would be within the capital outlays. So the chief is here this evening. I did meet with the chief this morning. We reviewed his budget, and we made the determination this morning, because he was without a fire chief for the greater part of the spring and the summer, that we have the ability to purchase these tools right now. So we're going to issue a purchase order for these tools under the 2021 operating budget, and request that you remove this from the 2022 proposed budget.
Thank you, Jim, and
What page is that?
thank you, chief.
So there is a page in the back, under the capital outlay section, page 13. You also can see it on page 1 of the handout that I gave you, just in summary form. It's for $35,350.
Okay, I'm gonna need a motion from someone
So move.
to add $15,000 to the fire chief's budget. No, to remove $35,350 from the capital outlay request for the fire chief, for the Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to remove $35,350 from the capital request by the fire chief. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you, Jim, and also the chief. Really appreciate that. Glad you crunch some numbers and get that done this year. Okay, what's next?
Next one would be zoning board. Costs associated with notice of decision. I did some research. I could not find anything that required a notice to be posted in the paper. This again was a request by the ZBA because they want their decisions to be put into the paper. To my knowledge, there is no statutory requirement to do so. I did ask the chair if she would like to attend. She's not, but Tavis is here. If you have any questions about this.
Okay, is that page 1 in zoning and planning?
Correct, sir.
Okay,
Page
thank you.
1, Planning and Zoning, Department 41304 is the zoning board.
That'd be line 562.
You're going to do a motion to reduce that line to $2,500, which is the same as it was last year.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is reduce line 562 in zoning board to $2,500. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and the next one is the planning board 5-year history review. Tavis, do you have anything to provide for the board?
I do. Thank you. What I did, or Terry did, I should give Terry credit since we're on TV.
Jim, what line are we talking about now?
This was not a line item,
This
this
is
was
not a
just a
proceed-
revenue. You wanted a 5-year history
Oh,
of
okay, on the revenue?
revenue.
What you have is a 12-month breakdown with the amount of revenue received by each month
Thank you.
from 2016 to 2021. Then down toward the bottom, you'll see total number of applications received, the advertising budget that was in the budget, and then the, where you want me over here?
No, I wanted
What
one
you
else,
want?
but yes. City
That
Watch
too.
out, watch out.
Yep, I got you.
Thank you.
The advertising as budgeted is approved by this committee, and then the red lines below that are the total amount expended, and then the difference between the budgeted and the actual overage itself. On the back side of that same page, you see in 2016, the cost per ad was $65.40. That ad now costs $196. That's where the disparity lies. We've been working with the paper to strongly encourage, I don't want to say force here, but strongly encourage them to use the smaller ad space that's available, because there's no reason to be paying $200 an ad. I did, just for giggles, even though you've already acted on the ZBA request, I'm going to give you some information you didn't have. I wasn't quick enough to jump in front of the second. This is the same type of information gathered for the zoning board, which was used as the basis for the request this year to increase the number based on the additional noticing. So in the case of the ZBA, you can see that 2,500 has been the line that only worked in 2020 and 2021. Now that the year is complete, it worked out. Perhaps the motion will make sense and we could make it work with $2,500, but not if the same number of applications come in. But the original request for me was to come up and see how much revenue the planning board was bringing in, and there you have the 5-year totals.
So with the application fees collected, is that on ZBA only, but not on planning? Do you have any cost for planning to put as far as application fees for that?
I don't understand the question.
Okay.
When somebody applies to go to the planning board, they typically pay $150.
Okay.
And now you see the net problem with the ad being $196. ZBA, it depends on the application, but most of the fees are about the same. The only thing the applicant pays is an application fee and then the postage for the abutters labels.
Travis?
Why don't you just increase the application fee?
We could increase the application fee, but I have to bill, or Casey yells at me, I have to bill the ads to this line. So I can increase the revenue, but I still can't increase the expenditure. I can increase the revenue, but I'd have to go red, and then we'd have to make sure it lines up in the future. I don't see the revenue side.
In order to roughly calculate what these fees are, application fees are, is my math right? If I took the total for 2021 at 4690.50 and divided it by 34, is that gonna give me a rough average?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I think all of us would be,
Emphasis on rough average.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on 562, advertising? Any motions concerning 562? Seeing and hearing, then we'll move on. What's the next one, Tracy?
The next one is going to be the capital outlay for the Parks and Recreation vehicle. Christine is here this evening to discuss this. So we have a couple of options here. We have looked at a lease option, very preliminary. Estimate is gonna be between $585 and $600 a month for a 5-year period. Year one, that would be an estimated budget of $4,095 for year one.
What page is this?
It's capital outlay, page 30. Christine and I sat down late this morning and we did some budget review. This year, again, because of COVID-related issues, she's significantly underspent her labor line. Same thing in a couple other budgets, cemetery being one, and she knows the other. I can't remember right off the top of my head. This is actually a purchase that if this board so chooses, we could make the purchase in the 2021 operating budget, remove it from the 2022 proposal, and use the balance of funds which she has in her accounts. Or we go with the straight capital outlay request of the $35,000. Christine is here to be able to help answer any questions which you may have, and I will try to help as well.
This truck that you're looking to buy is gonna take care of all her needs that she's requested in her backup and all that.
I'm sorry, I was walking and I couldn't hear.
That's okay. The one you're looking at, you can buy right now with the money that you have. That's gonna complete all your needs that you're requesting in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And again, that's if we can find a truck. That's gonna be the caveat to this. You know, trucks the prices are going up regularly, and, you know, there's not a lot of inventory out there, so we haven't had a chance to look at inventory on the floor today, but, you know, what I'm sitting here saying is, if we're able to find something right now, we have the money to be able to execute the purchase, if this board desires. If this was a replacement truck, I would have no problem going forward and making that decision and doing it, but it's an expansion of the existing fleet, so I don't feel comfortable in making that decision without some input from this particular board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So is this similar to what we just did with the tools for the ladder truck? We're paying today with money today what we would have budgeted to next year.
Yeah, so this is basically leftover funds in her
It's very
2021.
coincidental, the dollars are exactly the same.
Well, they're not,
Oh,
they're
they're not? No?
350 and
Did I transpose?
530,
Ah,
but yes.
my dyslexia.
Yes, I did the same thing, I said,
So's mine.
How convenient.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
John.
John.
You say you have money in the 2021 budget for it. If you don't find a truck that you can make an offer on by the end of two
Next
weeks
week.
from now, then you cannot go ahead and do it because you don't have those funds obligated.
Correct.
Right.
So
Okay.
what we would be basically doing is making telephone calls tomorrow. If this board says, you know what, that's a great idea, let's put it behind us and do it, we would be making telephone calls tomorrow to find out what's on, in the lots.
Well, the thing is, I just want to point out here that if you fail on that, then it's not going to show up in the 2022 budget, is it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So do you think you would be at a disadvantage having only 2 weeks to look for a truck? Because you're in a position of need rather than, so you're not in the driver's seat in that situation.
We aren't, but I did do some real quick research tonight, sitting right here, you know, and there are some vehicles out there that are in that $38,000 price range right now, sitting on the lots ready to go. And, you know, it's incumbent on us to make the telephone calls and say, can we get this to the 35, 530? And that's what we will push.
And you want a regular cab, is that gonna be like a 4-door vehicle?
So
So you could carry like 2 in the front and then 2 of them in the back?
So this particular truck, as spec, was a 2-door truck. The problem is, we're not finding a lot of 2-door trucks
Yeah.
on the showroom floor, for better terms. We found one this spring, a replacement for the water department, because we had a motor that was on its way out, and we were actually able to find one in Maine that the price was perfect, and it worked out wonderful for us in the capital outlay plan.
And we're getting a truck instead of a vehicle, a car? Because as I read this, it's more about transporting people than having a truck.
So-
Again, because you've got 3 trucks already, one being a plow truck. And, you know, and I just want to make sure that we're filling the right need.
Fair question. So Christine already has a Caravan. One of the things that I pushed, she wanted to go with a smaller truck. I said, I think it's important that you go to a similar size pickup that you have right now for your work truck, in case that work truck that you have that plows fails, so that you've got another truck in the fleet that is similar to what you already have.
But that plow truck is only 1 year old, 2 years old?
Yeah, one.
So it
one
shouldn't
old.
fail necessarily.
Should not fail.
Okay.
We only have 2 trucks and 1 caravan. What we're finding is it's not just transporting people, it's
Regular
transporting equipment. So no one's gonna put a lawnmower in the caravan or like,
Right.
you know, so that's where we're at with that.
Okay. Have you looked at the possibility, like I went to Concord the other day and came by Tim's auto truck thing, and they keep expanding, and they have a huge selection of used vehicle. You can find a pretty good vehicle, 5 years old, 6 years old, even 10 years old, that is, if it's been rust-proofed, it's still gonna be in decent shape. Are we looking at that as a possibility too?
So that is certainly an option that we have not really, again, researched, because we just hit this today, but that is something that we could effectively look at. I don't think that would work well for the lease purchase option, but I think it would work well for an end-of-year purchase if we find a truck that meets the needs of Parks and Rec that's in good condition.
Are you favoring the lease purchase?
I'm not favoring the lease purchase,
Okay,
and you'll know why by the end of this meeting.
okay, okay.
John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hold on. Tom, did you have a question?
I was just gonna make a motion to revisit this in a couple weeks.
We can deal with it tonight. If there's an issue, we can come back and put it back in, if you wanna take it out.
Okay.
That's my opinion. You guys can do whatever you wanna do.
I have a similar feeling. My feeling is to buy the truck from this year's budget, because the 2022 budget is kind of heavy. I also feel that it might be a mistake to pull the line tonight, because these folks may not find a truck. We can pull the line at our final review budget meeting, which is, I don't know, the 3rd or 7th, and leave it that way. You know, just leave it, as Brian said, just leave it in the budget and pull it on our final budget review if they find the truck and purchase them.
If this truck is important, they'll find the truck before January 1st.
So
This
you're
is-
saying we should pull the
this is-
line tonight?
That's right. We brought this up when we did Parks and Rec, so this has been everyone's been aware of this since we had that meeting.
Okay.
That's just you guys can do whatever you want to do, that's just my opinion.
That caravan, what happens to the caravan? Is that getting traded in, or are you gonna keep that too?
No, we need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking
Oh,
a
no.
This is a
question.
whole new vehicle.
Just asking the question.
No.
Yeah.
My secretary did some research on trucks, there's trucks out there.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, I'll call you in the morning.
Could you put that on your credit card?
You might have to.
Leanne, was it the Red Trail boss?
You might have to get the crew cab.
Okay, then there are trucks available.
Is
Not
Denali,
identical
is
to
the
mine.
Denali really expensive? Is that more than 35,000, you think? Okay, I'll do a motion to,
How about a cargo van?
remove,
No.
$35,530, from the capital outlay for a pickup truck request.
Second.
I don't want it.
And this can be brought back up if they have unsuccess, but this gives some incentive to folks who really look forward.
The big one.
So, Mr. Chairman, am I clear in understanding this board that if we can find a truck at this point, this board would support that purchase?
Yeah, well, we have another vote yet, I can't tell you that. If the vote comes back, yes, remove it, then I would say that they would support that.
Thank you.
Do you have the same feeling with the selectmen if they're also going along with this, or?
I think that they would go with it going forward, because it, like you said, it removes it off of next year's budget.
Yeah,
But we're only two.
yeah.
Hey, are you,
Hold on for just a second, Steve, please. Tom?
The only point I would make is, don't compromise, just because of
Yeah.
speed.
Right.
No, I think, again, brief research, I found some things out there, and I have a couple people I can call as well.
Thank you.
are you looking to, when you talked about the plow truck, are you thinking about getting this as a possible plow truck?
Well, I say plow truck, I was more concerned about towing, to be
Okay.
honest with you. Heard, the mowers, all of that stuff that they do in the summertime. That's what I was actually more concerned about. But, if going forward, all of a sudden, the Parks and Rec season need to expand their plowing, I mean, that's something that we can come back with and look at a plow in the future within our own operating budget, or if we're able to find a used one out there with a plow on it that's in good shape, well, we can have that conversation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
follow-up question.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, motion is to remove $35,530 from the capital outlay request by Parks and Rec. That will allow the town manager and Parks and Rec director to use funds still remaining in this year's budget. And if that's the case, if they can't find a truck, then we can revisit this and do whatever the budget committee wants to do after they find out the truck or whatever. Everybody understand it? Okay. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and Christine, you're gonna get the John Deere also this year?
Nope.
No?
Well, yes, it's already done.
Okay, it's done,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, we're coming to pick the truck up right now.
I got a copy. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That was good, Christine.
Wolfeboro Waters, I provided you some documents. I believe that Linda Murray provided you some documents through Leanne. If you have any further questions, Linda's the one to ask relative to this.
What section is that in, Tracy? You know, talking about
Executive budget, sorry, I was somewhere else. Executive budget, page 1. So it's under general government, page 1,
Page 3.
page 2, sorry.
Page 3. Page,
Around
one,
page
1 and 2 equals 3, right?
Yes.
Page
Okay, so that's line 872. Any questions? Any questions on line 872?
Yeah, on Wolfeboro Waters, is that, where the, I've got the summary assessment and so on. Are we funding the Lake Winnipesaukee group on that, or is this, I mean,
All the waters in Wolfeboro are being tested.
so like Russ Pond is included with
Yeah,
this?
we have members of every association on the committee,
Okay.
and.
And so the committee that you lead, so we give 18.6 to your group, and then you decide what to do with it?
Yeah, I tried to tell you what we're doing, for 12,000 of it, we're doing all the water sampling, and we send those water sampling out to UNH. We have a consultant from Bigelow Labs who's helping us evaluate our tests. They also will be able to give us results if we have a cyanobacteria outbreak within 7 days, where it took the state until December to get us results on whether they're toxic. All the work is done by volunteers. And we are, right now, we are supporting the Back Bay Watershed Management Plan and environmental studies. In order to deal with that, they're coming around Lake Winnipesaukee. They dealt with Winter Harbor and Watershed Management Plan. They're coming into Wolfeboro Bay to do a watershed management plan. The watershed management plan that was done in Wentworth and Crescent Lake is part of that watershed. So that upper part is done. We only have to do Back Bay and Wolfeboro Bay. When Wentworth was done, there were 319 grants that would allow you to have to pay for a watershed management plan. 319 grants no longer will pay for an asset management plan. 319 grants will pay for correction of runoff. And so there's some work with 319 grants right now being done on Lake Wentworth.
So does the Wolfeboro Waters Committee, do they do fundraising, solicit funds for your 319 grants? Is it to solicit funds from, do they have fundraising? Is the 18.6 the only monies that you guys receive?
That's the only monies we receive. They are going to support the Lake Winnipesaukee Association and some of their fundraising, but all that money will go through the Lake Winnipesaukee Association. We just got a $100,000 grant to do that watershed management plan. It will come into the town, but my understanding is that we will give it out to the Lake Winnipesaukee Association.
Is the 100,000 going, that's going through Dave Ford?
It's gonna go, I don't know whether it's gonna go Who's it gonna go through, Tavis?
Tavis, I believe it goes through, to the, Lake,
It comes to us, they're gonna
Yeah.
give us the invoices.
yeah, and then it goes through, to, Therapy, I believe, in her group, correct?
I didn't bring the management plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about the actual to date versus budget and,
There's a whole lot of tests that have just come in that they're gonna be bills for. We got it from the UNH just a little while ago. There was a $5,000 bill from Bigelow Labs. It's not in here. It tends to be towards the end of the year when we start getting.
after the summer, yeah.
Yeah, they gotta run all the tests and stuff like this. Volunteer, there are a lot of people out there testing the waters of this community, and they're doing it free. You're just paying for the materials in order for them to do it. And I gave you the two sheets, one of them which told you the amount of money that the Nelson Rockefeller Center said that the property assessment and then the taxes that come into the state from waters, the waters and bodies in the state of New Hampshire, and you can see it in tourism, boating, fishing, etc. And then I gave you the one in which Vermont has a big issue with Lake Champlain, and it told you how much it's gonna cost in value and how much it's gonna cost for the state of Vermont to clean up that lake. The Wolfeboro waters got started after our cyanobacteria outbreak by Cary Beach, and they're trying to figure out what's going on in our waters. We're working on dealing with runoff, which was one of the main ways that phosphorus gets into our lake. That's where the road project is going to be done this year up on Berrywood and up around Partridge. So it is our step to make sure our lake doesn't turn out like Lake Champlain, and that we get an understanding of what is running into our lakes, and that we do the mediation before we run into the same problem. And that we can get 319 grants for mediation, we can't get it for the management plan.
Have you gotten any 319 grants already?
There's one going on at, on Wentworth, on Birchmont, that all came through.
But, I mean, with this group.
This group, it doesn't, well, yeah, I will say, this group had Tavis put in a application, and we didn't get a 319 grant, but we got some of the, money from the state.
Yeah, some of the ARPA money, I believe it was.
Okay, any other questions on Wolfeboro Waters? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Okay. So the next item is the capital outlay for seasonal water line upgrades. That would be under capital outlay, and here.
What,
Seasonal water line.
yeah,
Page,
what
He hasn't got,
page number?
Haven't got there yet.
neither one of us have got there yet. Sorry. I believe I'm on page 44 in the capital outlay section for $90,000.
So this is a $90,000 request, which we would like for this board to bring this request back to zero.
No, you can't get
Okay, so you've decided to do something else with this money, or you've got some money to do it with, or you've.
So we have a warrant article, which will be coming in front of you relative to this, and it should take care of most of our problems relative to this. This is a major issue, and this is one of those items that the capital outlay was done before we got to the warrant article and the research associated with ARPA funds. So we're going the warrant article route, trying to get ARPA funds to offset us, or low interest loans associated with state revolving fund or bonding. So this is all stuff that's actively being worked through with Dave Ford, and we're requesting to remove this.
Okay, can I get a motion to, remove the $90,000 request for the capital outlay?
So move.
Second.
Everybody's jumping on
Everybody's
board.
jumping.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to, remove $90,000 capital outlay for the water line upgrades. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, the next item is page 46, mowing equipment associated with the RIB site. The RIB site is basically complete. We heard what was recommended by this board. We're gonna try to contract with somebody to mow it. And if they want the proceeds associated with it, if there's any quality hay to be taken. From that point, what'll happen is there's some warrant articles to utilize the final funding associated with the RIB site. If that project comes in and the contracted service isn't working out, then we will revisit this particular item to be able to buy that mower through any funds left through the RIB lawsuit. So at this point, we would like to request that this board reduce this $70,000 request to zero.
Anybody have a motion on that?
So moved. I have a comment, John.
Go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
In that line there, there's a $1,286,140, $1,286,149.33 in that pot left over.
Oh, that's big.
So I would agree with this.
Okay.
This is, so we're good?
We didn't vote on it yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was getting ahead of myself.
What was the number you said, John?
Beg pardon?
Could you just repeat the number for me, please?
As of 30 November,
Correct.
$1,286,149.33.
Okay, thank you.
No, I had two first.
I'll second it.
And Tom Bell seconds the motion. Okay, any further discussion? The motion is to remove capital outlay request for mowing equipment for the RIB annex.
Aye.
Try,
I can't hear
Can
you.
you control him a little bit for me, geez, I'll go. For $70,000. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of removing the capital outlay for $70,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, moving right along. Sewer pump station upgrades, page 47, I believe this is. So we are requesting to bring this back to zero. And we're gonna be looking at further ARPA funds to be able to potentially do this work in the future.
Okay. Anybody want to make that motion to reduce this capital outlay request for sewer pump station upgrades to zero?
moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, removing capital request, sewer pump station upgrades in the amount of $62,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So the next item is page 48. Hall Road for the wastewater treatment plant. We would like to take this $24,000 and bring it to zero.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have a question. Why do you want to take this to zero?
Because we are actually going to be looking at ARPA funds to be able to do this work.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and a second from anybody over here? Okay, any discussion? Okay, the motion is to reduce, capital outlay request, site work upgrades, Hall Road to 0. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, in front of you, you got a spreadsheet this evening that has 4 pages on it. Page 1 is the gasoline line. We went through that, and we were able to streamline the unit price, take the corrective measures. In the 635 line of the operating budgets, across all funds, we would save $6,193 by correcting the budget number per unit price. As far as the diesel, the propane, and the heating oil, those are all pretty much right on where they should be. But if somebody would like to make a motion to reduce the gasoline budget as outlined on this spreadsheet by $6,193, we will get that taken care of.
Motion to reduce the gasoline budget by $6,193 as outlined on the spreadsheet for each of the departments.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to reduce the gasoline account numbers ending in 635 by $6,193. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So,
Any other
Mr.
good
Chairman,
news? More good news?
At this point, if my math is correct, this little exercise that we just went through over the past 20 minutes or so, we just cut $325,573 out of the 2022 proposed operating budget.
Who's buying pizza?
That's cut.
Jim, I just,
Question?
hold on just a second. Jim, I just want to thank you for your hard work and the selectmen, the board of selectmen for their hard work and really taking a good look at these things and doing that. I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of the taxpayers do too. Go ahead, Tom.
Is it of that number, Jim, will we see that in warrant articles?
So, yes and no. So the seasonal water lines, you will see a warrant article for the seasonal water lines. You got that spreadsheet last week. That's a $500,000 request. Going forward, again, that will be on the users, not on the taxpayer. The sewer pump stations, you'll see two sewer pump station rebuilds, Laner Street and Mill Street, which has been discussed for years. These were to some of the smaller stations, so we're gonna look at some of those ARPA funds that we've already received to do some of those repairs, and further ARPA funds going forward. So, the short answer, you may see some similarities, but you really won't see a lot of crossover in the warrant articles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
John?
Yes, sir.
From my quick first look at the warrant articles, the two big pump stations, Blaine Street and what's the other,
Mill Street.
Mill Street. I think one you have being paid for out of the lawsuit money, and the other one being paid for by infrastructure
So,
funding.
if I remember correctly, half of that is being paid for by infrastructure funding.
Okay.
And then there's some loan forgiveness and some other things, but quite frankly, it's a heck of a deal.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting that $1.3 million or $1.4 million pump station for $700,000-800,000
Right.
as opposed to the full boat. I think was 50%, but,
Very good.
so, yes, it's gonna impact long-term debt, but at the cost of that money, we can't not look at it.
Now's the time to bond things.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Where would you like to go now?
I think now we are on to revenues and
Default or
default budget,
revenues?
which Casey can speak to.
which one would you like to go over first?
Let's do revenues first.
Revenues. Okay, so I handed you out a 5-page document. I do want to emphasize that this is draft only. We haven't had time, I haven't had time to review this with the Board of Selectmen. They were handed it today for their review, but they have not reviewed it as a board. And with all the changes you just made, I will be updating it based on all the capital outlay and the motions made tonight. But in summary, the front page before tonight's changes gave you a tax rate of $5.63 for the municipal side only, which was a 35% increase. Again, that is assuming all warrant articles are being put forward the way they are written right now. The board will be reviewing this on January 4th or 5th, I think. So they will be revisiting it again. On page 2 and 3 is the revenues. Because we just reviewed revenues when we set the tax rate in October, not a lot has changed. And based on the fact when they review the warrant articles and decide what the offsetting revenues may or may not be, these numbers will change. So again, this can only be preliminary. Page 4 was all the cuts you made prior to this evening. I will update that with tonight's activity. And then page 5, Jim already handed this out, the town manager handed this out last week. It's the same exact document, but it's showing the $2,022,000 in cash raised by tax, which is the current proposal at 84 cents. So if you have any specific questions, I know you're just getting the information tonight. I apologize, that's the soonest I could get it to you.
Yes, Tom.
Can we really tackle this tonight, or do we need to wait for the supervisors and the changes, or?
Yeah, we'll just do a preliminary review of it. The money from the PD, that salary, what line is that?
I'm not sure your question. So there's grants that come in for police, there's miscellaneous that comes in for police.
Maybe you can check, you know what I'm talking about, Jim?
Grants would probably be what you're talking about. So,
Yeah, I
So-
think it's grants.
so if you have, police officers working, you know, red light stopping or,
Yeah, this is something, that's just something different that Jim, I'll talk to you afterwards about it.
Okay.
This is the position that the state pays for.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
yeah, as do I. That would be part of grants, yes.
That seems kind of low.
I'm wondering if that's under federal. Good question.
Because if it's under federal, it doesn't show any revenue, estimated revenue at all for 2022.
Yep. We'll look into it.
Okay. The rooms and meals tax, when will that start to go up based on the new rates? The towns are supposed to get more than they were previously.
That just starts as of October. I think we just, we haven't actually, that's the one we haven't got in yet, right? But the rate just went up in October. But that was just quoted to us, the $465,000 was just quoted to us from DRA in October, so that's the
Okay.
best guess I have at this point.
Okay.
That's about $140,000 increase. We were getting $320 a year, or $321 a year.
Right,
for years.
but I believe that was only a one-time, that has nothing to do with the increase of the rate. John, can you help me by any chance? They gave you some additional.
Yeah, you should get another percentage, I think it's 10%.
Right, the rate just went up in October,
Yeah.
but the additional 100 and something that we got was a one-time thing, is what I
Yeah.
was told.
I think there's legislation bouncing around Concord, John, I think Brody put something out on it, that I think, he
That's
might be
the-
a sponsor on a bill to raise us up to a 40%, to the
40%, yeah.
40% that was initially promised to the town back in the 60s. However, the bill also lowers the rooms and meals tax, I believe, to 7.9%.
Yeah, that won't happen until. we
Well,
go back
if the bill passes,
If it
right?
passes, yes,
Right.
we're not, probably not talking until next June, or
Right.
somewhere in there. Okay, we can come back and look at this again.
Well, it'll be my intention to update again based on the motions you had today, give you a picture of where we're at, the anticipated tax rate.
Right, just 35 cents does not include tonight.
Right, that's correct, and technically, the only thing you did was the 235, the ladder truck tools
Right.
and the truck, so it's about 2 or 3 cents that you've taken off the tax rate, even though you did a lot of motions there,
Right,
water
okay,
and
yeah, I
sewer.
got you.
So yeah, you're up about 32 cents on the town side.
Okay, so, I guess we can go, the default budget, that'll be a little bit on the difference, a little less, right? On the difference of, the proposed budget, if it's accurate.
It is accurate, however, again, I haven't even had the chance, to talk to the town manager about this. He was given the document, but we have not reviewed it. So, what I usually do is I back out any of the capital outlay from, prior year. I adjust for any, contractual obligations, such as New Hampshire Retirement System, health insurance, any, what else, property and liability insurance, debt service, principal and interest. I believe, Mr. Tuffer asked if I could do it based on fund, so I did break it out by fund. Not sure the format you've seen in the past, but, this is what I created for your review. Broke it out by funds.
It was never broken out by funds before, so this, I'm asking you to do something that, I'm not used to seeing. So.
Okay. Well, if you need me to change this a different way, like sort by type, I could do that also. But before tonight, the difference, you know, if had the ballot been blessed and all your work been done, there would have been, the difference at the bottom is $552,000 based on the budget that was proposed of a little over 30 million prior to tonight, but you've just taken quite a lot out of the capital outlay. So it was $552,000 before your actions of this evening.
What was the first budget figure that we had before we started doing any cuts? How much was it?
Operating expenses on page 1, bottom right-hand column is $63,000. So that's where the difference between that 30 and this 29 was approximately $552,000.
And Jim, you said your real quick look at it was how much did we take out on capital outlays? What was that number you?
Tonight, 325,000. On everything you took out tonight, the 2,500 from zoning and then the capital outlays.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was trying to keep up with it on the worksheet here, and if my math is correct, tonight, you're at $29,762,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was the number I was.
I tried to keep, listen and engage at the same time, so.
So by the default budget, that $29,511,151. That's all the commitments that we have to make under the contracts, agreements, and all this other stuff, right, to keep the town running.
Yes, based on my interpretation, I would like to, you know, again, talk to the.
Very draft.
I'd like to talk to the town manager, see how, you know, this is a little bit subjective. I mean, a one-time contract means different things to different people, so I wanna make sure that my interpretation is what the town manager and the board of selectmen,
Okay.
agree to.
Okay, what else do we have?
The only other item I would like for you to know is I did hand out financials for the chamber as requested. They came in at about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay.
John, just wanted to speak to that for
Sure.
a second. I spoke to John before the meeting, and I want to hold that line until our final budget review, so we haven't allocated that money yet. We won't until the final budget review, correct, John?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't look at it yet, we just got it tonight.
Understood.
Oh, so you mean the Chamber of Commerce then, is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
line 380 in Economic Development Committee allocates $6,000 to the Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to allocate that yet until we get a good look at those financials,
So
which will
that's-
be on our final budget review.
So that's a follow-up.
Right.
When, the default budget, when should that be finalized, do you think?
It is my plan to get in front of the board either on the December 28th, if possible. They're having a special meeting to go over encumbrances for year end, or it would be their January 5th meeting.
Okay, we've got a meeting on the 28th also,
Yep, we know, we've scheduled it in before your meeting.
before our meeting.
5 PM.
Okay.
So if you'd like to attend the Board of Selectmen's meeting right here at 5 o'clock, we will be having one.
You guys are coming here?
We are.
Wow.
Just so we don't have to drive all the way from there to here.
We're doing double duty.
Yep.
Okay,
John,
yes,
just one piece of business.
yeah.
Jim, you mentioned on the warrant article spreadsheet that you gave us last meeting, is that gonna be available for us to, you're gonna email that out?
Oh, yeah, I gotta send it to you electronically, yes, I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
So this one though, it was in color before, but this is the one you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
He knows what I'm talking about.
Yep, we'll get it tomorrow.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so the next meeting we have is on the 28th, and it's warrant articles. And I also want to give people the opportunity, if there's anything else they want to, if they go through the budget book over the holiday, that they want to make adjustments to, we'll do that also on the 28th, okay? That's the first thing we'll do. Any further budget adjustments. And then on the finalizing the revenues and the default. Can we do that on the 5th?
Aren't you meeting on the 4th and the selectmen are meeting on the 5th?
Where is it on my- oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of a little backwards.
Okay, yeah, we'll do the, on the 4th.
But the Board of Selectmen will not be complete.
I know. We're gonna have to go on the 11th.
Can we, at the same time, we are doing warrant articles for 2022, get a revisit on the warrant articles that passed for 2021 and just get an update as far as their completion? Is that something we could do?
Say that again real quick.
So the warrant articles that were passed last year.
You want a status report on last
It
year's?
would be helpful to me to get some kind of progress report where we are, especially on the bigger ones, you know, because if they're not getting completed, I'd like to know why and why we would pass something new if they're not getting completed.
Yeah, I can get you that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Tom?
I'm not sure if you heard the request, but would we get that before the meeting? Is that?
I should be able to put that together in advance.
That's last year's warrant articles, status update on those?
I should be able to put that together pretty quickly.
And that can go by email too.
Yeah, I
I
should
mean,
be able to
whatever,
get that
whatever works for you guys.
fairly quickly. No, that shouldn't be a big deal.
Okay, so we've got meetings on the 28th and the 4th, is that correct? The 4th?
As of right now.
As of right now. And
We're gonna have to meet on the 11th.
we'll probably have to meet on the 11th to finish some things up. But Leanne and I are gonna talk about it over a couple of days to see what we can do. Okay, you have anything else, Jim?
Yes, if I could. I would recommend instead of the 11th, I think there was also a 13th, I would recommend the 13th. And the reason I say that is there's a Pop Whalen bond hearing on the 12th.
Public hearing is the 13th.
So we'd have to meet ahead of the public.
We had the public hearing scheduled for the 13th.
So we'd have to meet ahead of that.
So in other words, we need to go. All right, I'm just, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna have to look at the SB2 meeting.
The time schedule, yeah.
And John,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and Leanne, we also have those minutes, we have to, look
Yeah,
at.
I'm not, that's the least of my problem
Yeah.
at this point.
So Leanne's gonna work on, we definitely got something going on the 28th, and, we'll work on the other dates. She's gonna check the, timeframe when we can have the public hearing, how many days, and all that other stuff. So, anybody have anything else? Okay, everybody have a nice holiday, and Merry Christmas, and thank you everyone for your hard work, Selectmen and Jim and Casey, appreciate you hanging in there with us.
Thank you. Leanne, just for the record, I believe they're in the book. Page 11 and 12 are the different calendars, DRA's calendar and NHMA's. Under summaries, page 11 and 12, just to help you out when you go.
I don't have this book. It's in the electronic.
Yeah. Summaries, page.
I actually just called it up
Okay.
on the internet, but thank you.
Yeah, I usually throw it in my summaries, so. So that it's there for you.
Okay, guess we're all set, and you're getting motion to adjourn?
Yes.
In a second, okay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, have a Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Merry Christmas, everybody.